As you know, we use this platform to share stories of resilience. And today I have a very special guest. Hey everybody, welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. I am so glad you're here. As you know, we use this platform. I'm sorry, our producer just distracted me, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead because that's what I do. As you know, we use this platform as a place for people to share their stories of resilience. And today I have this wonderful guest with us, Jordan Leavitt. Jordan is a UFC fighter, and he has a very amazing story. He is younger than I thought he was, and I love having young people on my podcast because just to show their resiliency at their age, I know it would encourage other people. So with that, Jordan, welcome to the Sally Allen podcast.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What did you think you were going to share with us today?
I don't know. I was hoping you were to lead me along with some questions, but I think I've lived a pretty interesting life so far. And I think when I think resiliency, I think of a lot of people in my life, and I think about myself by not being too, Well,
hang on. Before we go into me leading you, who's that you're hugging?
Oh, this is a very flattering stuffed doll, Patty Pimblett, a fella that beat me in a fight, my most embarrassing loss in my career so far, and I'm trying to, grow from that loss. It's a very embarrassing moment, and no one likes to lose, but luckily I don't do it too often, but I try to laugh at that bad happening now, so yeah.
You know what I have to say about that? The fact that you have him on our show and you're talking about it, and you're talking about growth from that fight shows you've already grown from that fight. You've already matured somewhat, and, this guy doesn't faze you at all.
No, that's like the past is one of those things where I don't think anything in your past really has inherent meaning. I think you give meaning to it. And this loss at the moment, half a paycheck, I'm making less money, it's a loss. It's very embarrassing, but I look back on it now, I'm very happy about it because I feel like I'm a much stronger, more well-rounded individual, and I think it's only going to lead to good for me. So
that's right. So the meaning you gave to it is that it's only going to lead to good for you. I love that. So epic. So, you are only 28. You are a UFC fighter. Tell us where your journey started. When did you know that you wanted to be a fighter?
I think when I was younger, I always wanted to be a ninja. But when I get to high school and I started wrestling because all my friends were wrestling, and it was hard. I never did a sport. I was raised with all sisters, so I wasn't very athletically gifted or athletically inclined. So I quit wrestling. But the day I quit wrestling, I turned on the TV and I saw the Ultimate Fighter, which is a reality TV show about fighters. And I sat down, and it was like a marathon of the entire season. And I just saw these guys fighting in a cage. And I've never once, there's a few moments in life where you look back and it's that was a very pivotal moment. But I never wanted to do something so strongly than when I saw those guys fighting. And I was hearing about their stories about what brought them to do this sport. And I was like, I've never been in a fist fight before in my life. But this is just something so beautiful and something so such a great thing for self-expression that I want to take part in this. And I was just hooked. So from 15 until now, that's been my singular focus.
So you got this desire at 15 to fight. You went to a gym and you start practicing. Yeah, tell us about your first fight. I always like to hear about the first.
So my first fight, I had just graduated high school and I was working full time. I was a barback and busboy, a legal barback. I was underage, and I remember I was training a little bit and I was coaching wrestling because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And the coach at Syndicate was like, "You want to fight in January?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to fight." And then I ran home and I told my mom, I'm like, "Mom, I have a fight, in 6 weeks." And she was like, "You don't know how to fight? What are you going to do in a fight? Pin him? You don't know. What are you talking about? You're not going to fight?" And I was like, "I think I know a little bit. I've been training about it for a few years." So I'm backstage and I have all these nerves. I've never been in a fist fight before ever. Like not even, I had no brothers. Like wasn't even no roughhousing. And my only concern was I like asked my coach like if I was to get knocked out, does getting knocked out hurt? And he's like, oh no, barely an inconvenience. Like you're not going to remember anything if you get knocked out. And that was a very important moment for me because in my mind I was like, so I'm either going to win or to be a blank space. So there's nothing to fear. So I went into the fight and then I won. And it was just so exciting. It was just so exciting. I blacked out the first 30 seconds of it. I woke up I like came to on the cage and then it was just my training. It came in, so.
Wow. Talk to us about that feeling when you won. Like, tell me about it. What did you feel? Go into detail. Tell us.
I was just 19, but for like 4 years, like you're a young person, that was like a big section of my life. And then I got the first win and like my mom's there and she knows I could do it. I'm not just going to lose, And I just felt like this great elation. I felt like this great release, because like it's a dream when you're a kid, but until you actually take a first like real step, it's just a dream. And I was like, oh, I could do this. And I was very sure that I could move on. I could make it to the UFC. I could make a living out of this after my first fight. And so for me, taking that first big step was very important and it led to a lot of good things for me.
So I understand you heard what your coach said. Look, either you're knockout or you win, and that got you in there. But there has to be some other like mental resilience. Where did you get the mental resilience like to go into the ring? It's called ring or octagon?
Octagon. Either one works. Ring
See,
or
I did
octagon
my
works.
research. Yeah,
Very good.
Yeah. What did it take to walk in there? Like knowing I'm going to be knocked out over in front of hundreds of people, or I can win. Like, what got you in there as you're walking towards that octagon?
My mom.
Your mom.
So
interesting.
I'm a very big mama's boy. My mom got pregnant with me right out of high school, and she was a single mom. And then when I was a week old, she adopted my older sister who was abandoned. So my mom had like no real job and she had no support system and she raised me and then a 4-year-old. And so my mom suffered my entire life. So I knew what suffering looked like. And so like my mom has always been a very good example of strength for me. And I don't think I'm the most eloquent or intelligent or talented or athletic person. But like watching my mom like grind through life and suffer, like I'm like, I could at least have that. And I feel like a lot of great virtues are just your ability to like endure, to suffer things. And I know I may not be the best at things, but I know I could suffer through those things until I'm at least good enough. Yeah. And so just seeing my mom live her life and raise us well and be a good example for me really gave me like the strength and the base to like enter into this sport, even though I don't think I'm particularly talented and I don't think temperament-wise it's really like something that matches me. But yeah, it's my mom.
Wow. Kudos to your mom. If you're watching this, Mom, kudos to you. Yeah, you raised a wonderful, resilient man. Like, you don't think you have the temperament, you don't think you have this, but you're still doing it. I think you sell yourself short.
I think you become what you want to be.
I like that a lot.
I always wanted to do this, and I think I'm changing a lot of people's opinions about how they view fighters. And that's often what people tell me when they meet me. Like, oh, you don't seem like you like to hurt people. You don't seem like you enjoy violence. And I don't. I hate that part. But for me, it's just such a beautiful, exhilarating thing that I get to take part in. So.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Tell us about that part then. If you hate doing it, how do you get through the fight?
I love the training. I love the problem-solving aspect. When I see an opponent, I see tendencies and I see possibilities for the fight, and that's very exhilarating for me. I loved playing chess when I was younger. I loved like games and like problem solving, and fighting for me is just one big math problem, one big puzzle to solve. And even though I hate the violence, I hate hurting people, for me it's never personal. It's just competitive. We both agreed to it, so there's not too much guilt with it anymore. I used to have a lot of guilt before and after my fights, like I don't want to hurt this person. Then after the fight I'd be crying like, I cut this person's paycheck in half and I hurt them and that sucks. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle, but I'm getting better at it, especially now that I'm in the UFC. I know we get paid enough where if if I beat you, I'm not ruining your life. I don't feel too much guilt. But when I was coming up before I got to the UFC, I was like, we have jobs, we have day jobs, and I hurt you, and your children are watching, and it's just a big emotional roller coaster. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you got through it. But what a heart! Like, thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that. I don't know if other fighters feel like that, but I'm just honored to know you and know that that's your heart. I just like that so much. So I had a question here, and I think you answered it though. Is that the most difficult part of you being a fighter, or was it the most difficult part?
hurting people is one of the most difficult things, but I think the most difficult part was like gambling on myself and being willing to this was a decision I made completely on my own. So if I didn't make it, it would have been all on me. And I don't think anyone that loved me would have held it against me, but I would have held it against myself. So I think the hardest thing I ever had to do, because it's the only thing in my life where I've been like, this is all me. It's all up to me. All the pressure's on me. And if I don't fail, it's my fault. So it was hard for me to take that leap of faith.
Yeah, when we talked a little bit on the phone, and you were saying, if you want something from him correctly, because we debated a little bit about it, you have to go out there and you have to, if you want it bad enough, that's what you were telling me. If you want it bad enough, you're going to have it. And my debate come back to you is, if you want it bad enough, you have to actually go out and do things to get it. Because some people have the desire, but they don't go out and do what they want to do. And I see you have the desire, you want it, but you go out and you do what you needed to do. Because, when you talk about Michael Jordan, how many times does he have to, I'm sure that there's a sports term, but I don't know sports, so I'll say just throw the ball in the basket, right? How many times did he have to take that shot when he was practicing, right? Thousands and thousands of times before he got that ball. And I'm sure that's what you do.
Yeah, like a lot of people focus on the winning. Like, I want to have the big house. I want to have this dream. But for me, it was mostly focused on like learning from my failures. I like to view like my fight career as I'm failing way more than I'm succeeding, but I'm failing upwards. So every time I lost, every time I'd do something wrong and then I get punched in the face for it, or I feel the pain, or I get the loss, for me it's always a positive, because I know I'm the person that's going to learn from his mistakes and learn from his weaknesses.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
I like that better. I tell my coach clients, like, remove failing from your vocabulary and just say, I love what you said at the end. I'm learning from my experiences. There are experiences, whether we do good or not, they're all experiences we learn from, right? And then next time we know what to do different, right? I like that a lot. I have so many questions going through my head. I have to write it down. Okay, the other one. Your mom, is she used to watching you now getting hit? Because obviously you're beating the other guy, but he's beating you too. How's your mom handling that?
My mom hasn't gotten to watch me in person since before 2020, but I could always hear my mom screaming. So like my first fight ever, when I like woke up after 30 seconds, I couldn't hear my coach. I had to read his lips. I had to look at him because I couldn't understand what he was saying. But I could hear my mom, hit him, just screaming the entire time. You could see her in the video behind, like she's behind like this old couple, and she's leaning over her phone, and she's screaming and she's shaking. I've heard my mom in a crowd of 17,000 people.
Oh my God.
So my mom, she's calmed down a lot, because I think when she sees how competent I am, she's like a lot more relaxed about it. And I think like my energy is contagious with my family and with my wife. Everyone always will ask my wife and my mom, like, do you get scared? Like, well, no. Unless Jordan's scared, then I'm not going to be scared. Because if I'm scared, be worried for me. But for like, if my face doesn't change, if my demeanor doesn't change, don't be worried. I'm cool. So.
Okay. So what is your mom screaming? She's screaming in fear. Is she screaming get up, or what is she screaming? I'm curious now.
My mom, she's becoming more of an educated fan of the sport. But first it was just like, no. And I'd be winning. I'd be like on top here like, no, don't be careful. I'm like, I'm winning. Don't worry about it, Mom. But now she watches the fights almost every week. She's becoming more educated. Now she's like, oh, don't get hit. Don't do this. So she's learning a lot. Just as I'm learning, she's becoming a more knowledgeable consumer of my sport. But at first it was just screaming, just all emotion. But I needed that. Yeah. So.
Your mom's funny. Tell me about the suit. I asked you to wear the suit on the show. I love the shoes, the socks, the whole suit. Tell us about the suit.
This is my grandpa's leisure suit.
Yeah.
My grandpa passed away like 3 years ago, and I got this suit after he passed. And he was one of the only people outside my immediate nuclear family that supported the fight thing from the get-go. And he passed away like right before my debut. So before I got to the UFC, he was gone. So I always promised I'd start wearing like his suit like in honor of him, like when I go to press conference and everything. But it's because my grandpa has been like a big supporter of me, like, and he still is.
Yeah.
But my entire like journey. So I wear these in homage of him, and luckily we're the same size, so it works.
Yeah, I love it. When I met you, you were wearing the suit, and I said you have to wear it on the podcast. I'm sorry your grandpa passed, but you have such great memories of him.
Yeah,
Suit,
and it's polyester.
It's polyester.
In this heat, it doesn't get sweaty. It's very stretchy. It's good. I think they should make more clothes out of polyester nowadays.
So, what advice would you give, someone, a teenager or a younger person who's watching this and wants to be a UFC fighter?
I would say that you have to make friends with your pain. And I think not just for fighting, but in life in general. But I feel like if you're friends with your pain and you don't run from it, you're not going to chicken out of making a lot of decisions you have to make. Because we're always afraid of the negative emotions. We're afraid of the fear. We're afraid of the anxiety. We're afraid of the pain. But those are the things that cause us to grow. Like, I love being happy, but my most valuable memories and experiences weren't when I was happy. They were like the glee I felt after a negative experience. So make friends with your pain, make friends with all those negative emotions, because that's what's going to bring you to any like great goal, any great thing you're striving for. So.
Wow, that's like a mic drop. We can close the show now. I was expecting that mic drop. Make friends with your pain. I've heard that said so hundreds of ways, but this is the most beautiful way I've heard it said. Make friends with your pain. Thank you for sharing that. That's just so beautiful. So what is your proudest moment?
Oh, like I think two come to mind. I would say my proudest moment, it's tied. I'm going to say tied because these are two. When my daughter was born, because I always wanted to be a dad, but I wasn't sure if I'd ever be like good enough to be a father. I didn't have like a dad in my life until like my mom got married when I was like 20. Now I have a father figure. But when I like held my daughter for the first time, and I knew right then I was going to be a dad. I knew I was going to be a good father. I knew there was no other option for me. Like when I held my daughter Josephine, like I felt like my destiny was just determined at that instant. And I wasn't afraid of that. And so that's probably like my proudest moment. And then either tied or close second is when I married my wife, because like when you're dating, you're going to fail the entire date experience until you succeed. Uh-huh. And I was just proud of myself for like grinding through like the dating world and making all those mistakes and suffering all those heartbreaks and still being able to choose somebody and having them fit my life so perfectly and complete this entire journey for me. So those are probably my two proudest moments. And the third, probably my UFC debut. So,
but you got one more coming in December.
Yes, I have another baby girl coming in December, and I'm a girl dad. I'm super excited.
Yeah. So you're Josephine, right? Mm-hmm. She's 2 years old?
Yeah, 2.5.
So she doesn't understand a fight or seeing daddy on TV or anything like that. She doesn't?
She does recognize me on the TV, and she does like watching fights with me, but I don't think she's like made the connection. Like, oh, it's dad fighting on the TV sometimes. But my wife says, I'm not there, because she's not in the same place. But she's like, oh no, she gets all animated when she sees you on the TV, She sees me walking to my song and everything. But I think my daughter's a little brute. Yeah. She's the most aggressive and sometimes very mean individual. And I think she'd be a much better fighter than I'll ever be, honestly. I think her temperament's a very good fit. Hopefully she won't choose that. Hopefully I'm not going to have to suffer through a second fight career in my life, But if she chooses that, I think she'd be very much inclined towards it.
So what's your song you walk out to?
I walk out to like baby making music or stupid songs. So a lot of guys, they like walk out to things to like pump them up. They want to feel masculine. But like I walked out to Grind With Me by Pretty Ricky last time. Like Grind With Me, like some baby making music, and like my corner men are dancing, and I'm walking out. And I love when I walk out to my stupid songs, because my opponents are like walking out to some rap song or some metal, and like they walk out first, and like, I can see they're pumping, and then they hear my song, and they're like, I can see their energy and demeanor change. Like, oh my gosh, what if I lose to the guy walking out to baby making music? You know, like, oh, he's the main character. It's not me. So I like walking out the stupid songs because it's just a fist fight, you know? And I just want to enjoy myself. So I'm always like dancing. I always look at the camera as I'm walking through. It's a good time. I stress about the walkout song way more than I stress out about the fights because I want it to be just perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. You should walk it to Britney Spears sometime.
My uncle's been telling me to do that too, but the Barbie movie came out last week. I might walk out to Barbie Girl. Like, I need a crowd, though. I need to have a nice crowd walking out to Barbie Girl. It'd be so much fun.
I think it'd be so much fun. But as you were talking, like, if I was your opponent, this big, macho guy walking out to like a fearless motivation song, right? Those fearless motivation vibes. And then here you walk out, like, totally unassuming. Like, I'm looking at you like, I could beat you in 30 seconds, right? Maybe that's what's going through their head.
Yeah, all of my opponents always talk about beforehand. Like when I usually beat them. I've lost twice, but like they're usually like, I wasn't expecting that, like. Especially when I was an amateur and no one knew who I was. I didn't even know how to use social media. Like, all my social media things were like food, And like, I'm fighting this one guy, and like I watched a video. He does the splits after he wins, and he's really awkward. And then I beat them, and they're like, oh gosh, like, you're very strong. You're very this. I'm like, well, yeah, like, I wouldn't come out here if I planned on losing. Everyone's like, oh, did you think you're going to win? I'm like, I'd hope so. I think I'm going to win every fight I agree to, because if I didn't think I was going to win, I wouldn't take it,
So what is your winning move?
So my victory dance or something?
Your victory dance? Yeah.
I usually, he's laughing. I always fall into a split, like a little front split.
Do? Okay.
And then I usually do like a twerk, or like a few times I've done the dirty dancing lift for my coach picking me up above him. Like when I won my debut, I won in 23 seconds. I knocked him out, and then I fall into the split. And then after the victory is announced, I point to my coach and I run at him, and they do like the dirty dancing lift. Oh my God. It was a perfect night.
I'm having so much fun with that. It's like you're just amazing. I don't know why we didn't do it the last time. I'm gonna have to watch your fights.
They're fun. They're not too violent. Yeah. So if you're squeamish, it's a pretty. I'm like a good gateway fighter.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
The hardcore guys may not like me. The violence bros may not like me. If you like blood, not the fighter for you. But if you want to dip your toes in. You want to see some like soft core violence.
Yeah.
That's me.
Austin, you're laughing. You have anything to add to that?
I mean, your last knockout was not for the squeamish.
I forget about that. Like, I've only had 2 knockouts, my debut, and then my last fight, and like I kneed him in the head, and he went unconscious, and that was scary. But
don't downplay that. That's not like you're like, I need him in the head.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on that, So I knock a guy out, and like I was like, so manly. I'm all screaming, running at the camera. I've never done that before in my life. I forgot my victory dance. I had a whole like choreography thing planned, something a little sensual and feminine, and I knocked him out, and I saw red, bro. I was like, yeah, I'm a man. Like I was on cloud 9. But yeah, I guess I did get that knockout was more violent, and it wasn't an accident like my first kind of knockout. But for me, that just wasn't me. That was the manly monkey king. That wasn't me. That wasn't Jordan Leavitt.
When you aren't intentional, you come out like the manly monkey king.
Yeah. When I'm losing, or when the going gets tough, the alter ego comes out. The monkey king. That's me. I'm him like 2% of the year. But the rest of the time, I'm just little dweeb, nerdy Jordan Leavitt. That's me.
So I see we've been sitting here almost for 25 minutes, and you exude of so much confidence, and you're so secure in your masculinity. Like, where did that come from? Like it's just something is it innate in you, or was it something you had to build throughout the year?
I was very shy, like the first half of high school. Mm-hmm. I just didn't really have a lot of self-worth, and I didn't really like view myself in a very positive light. But I think, well, it's kind of like it coincides when I started training for mixed martial arts. Like, there was nothing I did in my life before that I worked for that was all me. My mom didn't push me into it. It wasn't school. It wasn't like mandated to me. It was something that I was singularly focused on and I was driven towards. And just having a dream and trying to achieve it in itself is like a really big step, and it changes who you are. And so I feel like the moment I wanted to accomplish my dream, it changed who I was. And it made me feel more confident in who I was, and that's where and then that dripped over into other aspects of my life. So like I'm very confident in the cage, but if I could be confident for a few minutes, on a Friday night when I fight, I could be confident the rest of the time.
Yeah.
So it carries over. So
Yeah, and it takes a lot of confidence for you. Like I know we laughed about it, but to come out with your, like you call it, baby making music and different. I mean, that takes a lot of confidence and a lot of guts, but it also puts a different spin to the sport and what you're doing. And it speaks so much to your character and who you are that you don't care what people think. You're going to do you.
Yeah, like I think I'm very much resistant to peer pressure.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's negative, sometimes that's good. There's good peer pressure.
Right.
But like I am obstinate to a fault. And if I choose my course, I'm going to follow that course no matter what. And so like most of the tension's very positive. Like a lot of people like how I go about like carrying myself, but there's like a lot of negatives. And for me, it's always just been like, if you're negative, if you hate me and you're still watching me and you watch hours of me and you don't like me, you're a fan. Like you're hate watching me, but you're a fan. Yeah. And for me, it just, you're doing things right if you have people that love you and people that hate you. If everyone just likes you, you're probably a people pleaser and you're not happy yourself.
That's right.
But like when I choose like myself and those I love first, the people that don't like me, no, they don't matter. They fade into the periphery. And I get to choose what that attention means for me. And for me, it means that I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So,
Jordan, that's very inspiring because I spend so much time redoing my videos for social media. and as you're talking, I'm like, you're absolutely right. Half of the people are going to like you. Half of them would unfollow you. And that's totally okay, right? It's the one that remains that really matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Thank you for sharing today. Our producer gave us a question that we need to answer because our fans send in question. And his question is, Austin, I can't find the question. Wait. Oh, is breaking stuff a way to cope with your emotions?
No, I don't. I think if you feel the need to break things or to like exude influence over something outside yourself, that it points to you having a lack of control.
Yeah.
And it's hard to gain self-control. It's hard to gain self-mastery in those aspects. But I've never once been angry enough to want to put a hole in the wall. I grew up in like circumstances where people would break things and throw things. And I saw that happen to I have memories of that. I've seen that happen in a lot of my friends' lives. Like, it doesn't help you. You're still angry. You're just angry, but now you have a hole in your wall. And I'm not sure if you feel the same way. There's a hole in my wall. I'm very upset about that. So it makes me angry. I feel like it's a death spiral. So I definitely think that breaking things is not a good way to cope with things. So
I agree with you on that one. And you mentioned before we were talking, like you didn't grow up with a lot of things. So to break things, it's really hard. Just break things. But also like you, I grew up around a lot of violence. And I don't want to be like that. I made a choice to not be like that, to not be violent and to not break things, but to find different coping mechanism to handle emotions. So for the person who sent in these questions, both Jordan and I don't feel like we need to break things to cope with our emotions. And with that, it's a wrap, and until next time.